Good morning and welcome. The theme of today's service is the church is more than just a building. So let's sing together some new words to one of our favorite hymns. Please sing along. Church is more than just a building, more than wood or metal or brick. Church is how we love our neighbor. Church is how we tend to the sick, feed the hungry and heal the suffering, welcome strangers and give to the poor. All our service is as worship, all our presence an open door. Church is more than a weekly gathering. Church is faith that's come alive, filling hearts and minds with passion, peace and hope that ever abide. Even as the building's empty, we are touched by the deepest of grace. When the Holy lives within us, we are in a holy place. We're the church in the path we follow, showing care to those in pain. In the midst of fear and sorrow, we're the church, and here we'll remain, seeking justice, showing kindness, singing praises in all that we do. Church is more than just a building. It's our work toward a world made new.
Good morning. I love knowing that some of you are joining us from places all over the country. So welcome, and also welcome to those of you who might be right next door. This is the weekly service of the Unitarian Universalist Church of St. Petersburg. My name is Susan Bernor. I'm a member of the church, and I'm on the worship committee. Our minister, Reverend Jack Donovan, is on vacation this week, so the worship committee is filling in. I'm very grateful to Dave Mapp, Tony Buchter, Janae Johnson, and Michael Kaloran for helping out this morning, and especially to John Arterton and James Mack for putting everything together, including that wonderful version of Blue Boat Home. So perfect for our worship committee's summer theme of Still Church. If you'd like closed captions for this YouTube presentation, put your cursor on the screen and look for a little box with CC in it toward the bottom of the screen. You click on that and you'll get some pretty good closed captions. I hope you'll check out what's happening at our church, including our ongoing social justice efforts, by going to our newly redesigned website at uustpete.org. And please join us after the service for a virtual coffee hour. It's on Zoom, and the information on how to join will be shown at the end of the service. It's a chance for everyone to check in and see how everyone else is doing. And the coffee you make at home is probably just as good as that we serve at the church anyway. So I hope to see you there. Whoever you are, whyever you have come, you are welcome. We'll get started with the chalice lighting by Dave and Tony.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We'll begin our service by the lighting of our chalice and saying the words of our covenant.
Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Thank you, Tony.
You're welcome.
Good morning. My name is Dave Mapp, and the gentleman with me was my husband, Tony Buchter, and we are members of UU St. Pete. For me, not only am I a member, I'm also a member of the worship committee of this church. And during the summer months, the worship committee has filling in for Pastor Jack on several services, and we've adopted the topic theme of Still Church. And I'd like to focus on that topic today by talking about what's still church and what it means to me. While church can have many meanings for many, positive for some, negative for others, and even no meaning for those unchurched, I feel greatly connected to church. Church is not only a sense of being, a sense of place, a state of mind, a way of living, a sign of truth, or even just a matter of community or family. Church's relevance for me relates to every fiber of my being. Still church for me is having hope in faith, having faith in hope, and maintaining a connection to all that is seen as well as the unseen. Church for me is much more than a building. I am in church when I am awake, when I journey through the day, when I rest my bones to watch television, or when I veer off to sleep. I am in church when I greet my neighbor, share a laugh or a meal, when I take a drive with my husband, or when I talk to a friend. I am in church when I speak, when I help someone in need, when I think of someone other than myself, and when I feel most desperate to fight back feelings of depression, fear, and anxiety. Still church resonates with me feeling connected to a status of my own making, of my own being, of my own awareness, of my own doing, of my own connectedness to my humanness and my sense of place in the world. Still church is not still a building. For me, still church is still celebrating the greatest miracle of all. Still church is the continuous celebration of the miracle of life we all get to share in together. Being kind is still church. Sharing a meal is still church. Feeling pain is still church. Joy is still church. Being black or white or brown or red or yellow, rich or poor, abled or disabled, man or woman, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or straight, or somewhere in between is still church for me. Having faith or no faith at all is still church. Being alone, coupled, or being with a group is still church for me. Being out in nature is still church. I am where I am, and I am still in church. You are with me when I think of you, and we are still church together. We are still church, helping our neighbor as we help ourselves. We are still church when we believe in something and even when we don't. For me, still church is not being connected to a place or a thing. Still church is being connected to the wonder of life. Be where you are. After all, it is still church. even in the challenge of the COVID-19 pandemic. Each challenge will have its time, and other challenges await. Through my journey of the miracle of life, I keep my faith. I'm still church.
Hi, good morning. My name is Janae Johnson. I am your religious education coordinator and the communications coordinator here at the church, Unitarian Universalist Church of St. Petersburg, Florida. Today I am going to share the story for all ages. It's from this book called Stories to Nourish the Hearts of Our Children, created by Laura Sims. I have obtained so many wonderful stories out of this book. It has so many different genres of stories to share with youth, so I hope you guys enjoy it. This is called A Portrait of Peace. There was once a king who offered a prize to the artist who can paint the best picture of peace. See, many artists tried. The king looked at all the pictures, and after much deliberation, he held two paintings in his hand, and he had to choose between them. One picture was of a calm lake. The lake was a perfect mirror for peaceful mountains that towered around it. Overhead, fluffy white clouds floated in the blue sky. Everyone who saw this picture said it was the perfect picture for peace. The second picture had mountains too. See, these mountains were rugged and bare. Above was an angry gray sky from which rain fell, lightning flashed. Down the side of the mountain tumbled a foaming waterfall. Now this did not appear to be a peaceful place at all, but when the king looked closely, he saw that behind the waterfall was a tiny bush growing in the rock. Inside the bush, a mother bird had built her nest. There, in the midst of a rush of angry water, sat the mother bird on her nest. She was the perfect picture of peace. The king chose the second picture because, he explained, peace is not only in a place where there is no noise, trouble, or hard work. Peace is in the midst of things as they are, when there is calm in your heart. That is the real meaning of peace. So I hope you all enjoyed that story. Be sure to check out our RE weekly newsletter. It comes out every Friday. Also, be sure to keep up with what's going on with the church with our InfoNet announcements. Everyone works super hard to keep you all informed and engaged with the many things we still have going on, because even though the church buildings are closed, we're out and doing our thing. Church has been deployed. So, without further ado, I'm going to stop and pass the torch over. You guys have a wonderful, beautiful Sunday, and I can't wait to see you all another day sometime soon. Thank you guys. Bye.
Remember that nursery rhyme? Here's the church, here's the steeple, open the doors. But wait a minute, where are all the people? Well, here we are, and there you are. All of a sudden, we're in analog practice in a digital world. March 17th was about when we closed our doors. It was right around St. Patrick's Day, and I knew that things were very serious when Ireland canceled everything. So here we are, entering our 5th month of virtual everything. 5 months certainly feels like a long, long time. The question today is, still church? Well, today the doors to our beautiful and beloved church are still closed. We're unable to sing together because doing so hastens the spread of a deadly virus. Singing. How could something that gives us so much joy possibly be so dangerous? So are we still church? Well, our church building is quietly still inside. But yes, I think the answer is definitely yes. We are still church. And in fact, our digital footprint may be bigger than we ever imagined and much further beyond our walls. Last week, the nation mourned the passing of a great civil rights leader, John Lewis. I had the honor and the privilege of meeting Congressman Lewis during my time of service in Washington, D.C. And yes, he thanked me for my service, and he called me my brother. The Washington Post ran a beautiful photograph of Mr. Lewis at Black Lives Matter Plaza, taken on 16th Street in Washington, D.C. Black Lives Matter Plaza is officially sanctioned public art, also found in cities across the nation, including right here in St. Pete, across from the Carter G. Woodson Museum. Frail, thin, and near the end of his life, Congressman Lewis just had to see with his own eyes Black Lives Matter Plaza, so proximate to the White House. Early on that cool morning, Lewis stood quietly, solemnly, just soaking it all in. He was feeling the movement toward the beloved community that he helped launch as a young man, bearing witness to the passing of the torch to a new generation. The beloved community was no longer an abstract vision. It had fully come to life. Lewis was one of those inspiring leaders who felt a responsibility to send the elevator back down to young people. And he also valued artists and creative expression. In Lewis's youth, it was primarily the black churches that were driving the push for equality and civil rights. Now, in 2020, the Black Lives Matter leaders are outrageously diverse and global. Mostly young people, black people, brown people, white people, yellow people, indigenous people, queer, straight, gay, lesbian, transgender, moms wearing bike helmets. The beloved community is no longer an abstraction. Rather, it's being modeled by a whole new generation. During his funeral, as tributes poured in from all living former presidents, I heard references to the beloved community and the interconnected web of life. Because of COVID, the whole world has been drawn closer together. We're all now keenly aware of systemic racism that Lewis spent his lifetime fighting. But this time, the rate of change has accelerated beyond Lewis's or anyone else's wildest expectations. Are we still church? Well, again, I'll say yes, and so much more, but we still have a long way to go. It's going to be quite some time before we physically open our doors again, and we will unapologetically err on the side of caution for your health and your safety. We heard from you in our COVID survey last month, and I encourage you to reach out to me or any of the other board members with any thoughts, ideas, or concerns that you have. But most importantly, as we remain virtual, we need you to step up to help us keep moving forward. Meanwhile, our church will continue to stay connected via virtual services, covenant groups, and encouraging people to vote, rallying support of FAST, learning something new, and checking in on one another. So please, stick with us in this time, and for goodness sake, for John Lewis's sake, don't forget to vote. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael. You know, we can't all speak up with our joys and concerns in this format real time, but you can type them right into the YouTube chat over on one side of the screen for others watching the service to see real time. Or if you have joys and concerns that you'd like to have shared with the whole congregation next week, please send them along to Reverend Jack or to the office. The contact information is at our website, again, uustpete.org. One concern to pass along, Geneva Nelson is ill and has been tested for COVID-19, awaiting results, and we're all hoping for the best. And one joy of my own, my neighbor Frank, who entered the hospital 2 weeks ago, not sure if he would ever return, is now home and feeling better than he has in a long time. So I'm very grateful for that. Finally, a little ongoing concern for our church's finances. Please don't forget, if you move your computer's cursor, if you put it on the screen and move it up to the top right-hand corner, you'll see a little eye pop up. And if you click on that, it'll show you how you can make your contributions. So, still church. These are crazy times. I know you've all heard the Chinese blessing that is also a curse. May you live in interesting times. Well, if things get any more interesting in 2020, we might all lose our minds. 2020 has already been a year of tremendous losses. Lost time together at our beautiful church. For many, lost jobs or income. Lost friends or loved ones. Damaged or even lost relationships. Canceled weddings, canceled trips. Things that hurt, and hurt for a long time. Today we're thinking still church. In this moment, are we still church? So much has happened, though, that I find myself thinking, forget about still church. Am I still me? Is my country still America? Dave's and Michael's hopeful words earlier reminded me of Tennyson's beautiful, hopeful line in his poem, "Though much is taken, much remains." Dave talked about still church as having hope in faith and faith in hope. And Michael, ever the good leader, focused on the social changes happening around us. He said the beloved community is no longer an abstraction. It is being modeled by a new generation. I hope so, and I hope all of us, can keep up. And of course, still doesn't have only the meaning of even after all this time, we're still here. There's also the idea of still as in calm, motionless, peaceful. Another concept worth welcoming into our days and lives. I was so touched by Janae's story about the painting that represented peace, the image of crashing waterfalls and stormy skies that somehow can't disturb a little bird on her nest. I love that image of a peaceful bird, taking care of her home, maybe her babies, while everything physical around her is blowing up. She's still as in peaceful, and also still a bird, still a mom, still knows who she is and what she needs to do and be. Still me, still my country, still my church. I invite you right now to take a tiny moment of stillness before some final words. A moment of stillness with me and everyone else watching this service right now. Forget about the chat, leave the schedule, leave the waterfall of events around us. Take a few deep breaths and focus on and claim the concept of still. Still. Enduring. Remaining. Hush. For final words, I turn also to John Lewis. Now, he and I were both Georgians, though he was born in Texas and he was born in Alabama and I in Texas. We both lived enough of our life in Georgia to know one more definition of still. That special apparatus in the woods making moonshine and making a living for some of my relatives. But John Lewis, leave it to such a lion of his times to leave us with a final essay to inspire and make sure we're still working toward the beloved community. A man whose whole life was an example of peace among chaos. He could give a fiery speech, and Lord knows he didn't avoid getting into what he called good trouble. But he also radiated a kind of stillness, a harmony that comes from knowing yourself, knowing your purpose, knowing your place in the world. Some of his final words to us. I heard the voice of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. on an old radio. He said, "We are all complicit when we tolerate injustice." He said, each of us has a moral obligation to stand up, and speak out. When you see something that is not right, you must say something. You must do something. Democracy is not a state, it is an act, and every generation must do its part to help build the beloved community. a nation and world at peace with itself. I urge you to answer the highest calling of your heart and stand up for what you truly believe. I say to you, walk with the wind, brothers and sisters, and let the spirit of peace and the power of everlasting love be your guide. John Lewis is still with us. I'm still me, you're still you. And what we have together in this beloved community is still church. Thank you all for tuning in today and listening. I hope you'll come to our Zoom coffee hour right after the service. The information will be on your screen during the final music. I also want to thank Janae, Michael, Dave, John, and James for all they did to put today's service together. Thank you again. Stay well.
And now, please join us as we extinguish our chalice in saying the following. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of love, or the fire of courage. These we carry in our hearts and out into the world.
This great song was written by the late great folk singer from San Francisco, John Fromer. Ready, orchestra?
Hit it!
We need the Buddhists and the Baptists,
The Quakers and Catholics too,
the atheists and the agnostics,
Muslims and Jews,
we need people of all nations,
all colors and all creeds,
to put an end to war, put an end to greed. Gonna take us all to make a change, take us all to win the peace. Gonna take us all in the streets, gonna take us all, gonna take us all. We need your friends and your neighbors,
the poets and the painters,
the socialists and the anarchists,
the pacifists and the humanists,
every culture and community,
people black and white and brown.
At times we won't see eye to eye, but we stand on common ground. Gonna take us all to make a change, take us all to win the peace. Gonna take us all in the streets, gonna take us all to make a change, all to win the peace, all out in the streets. Gonna take us all, gonna take us all, gonna take us all, gonna take us all.
Though I may speak with bravest fire and have the gift to all inspire and have not love, my words are vain as sounding brass and hopeless gain. Though I may give all I possess and striving so my love profess, but not be given by love within, the prophet soon turns strangely thin. Come, Spirit, come, our hearts control, our spirits long to be made